Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to our reading for issue 13 of 1455's Movable Type. If this is your first time checking us out, welcome and thank you for checking us out. I'm Sean Murphy. I'm the executive director of 1455. And briefly, our mission is very simple. We celebrate storytelling, and we always are seeking ways to showcase those who do it. We do this through a variety of free programming. We've got an annual summer and fall festival. The fall one we just concluded in October. We have our Movable Type bi-monthly magazine. We have an author series. We do workshops, and you can find out a lot more about us and what we do at 1455litarts.org. For me, the Movable Type endeavor is just, it's such a labor of love, because every couple of months I have the opportunity to look at and enjoy amazing writing from people all over the country and sometimes from around the world. So it's always a tremendous delight for me to do my small but very enthusiastic part to expose these writers to a wider audience. And if you're watching tonight, we hope you'll do the same. Share this in your social networks and support the work of these awesome writers. So the way this usually works is we have our contributors. Not all of them were able to attend tonight, but those that are here have all do appear in the most current issue, which I certainly hope you'll check out online after this. But each of them is going to have a chance to read either from what they submitted or really whatever they want to talk about or read about. And what I'll do is introduce them individually, and then I'll hand the virtual mic, and we'll keep going till everyone is done reading. So thank you all for being here. Thanks to all the writers and contributors. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I thought it would be appropriate. We just, as I mentioned, concluded our first Fall Fest. In years past, it's been the Summer Fest, which has been a 3-day, in recent years, virtual extravaganza. Now that we're fortunately able to start dipping our toes into live events again, we're going to try to make this an annual thing where we do something in the summer and something in the fall. So at our fall event, we had a variety of featured poets, 2 of whom are able to join us tonight. I will start with my friend Holly Karpnikova, and I will read her bio and just start by saying this is definitely not Holly's first time being part of the 1455 mix, and it's just always a tremendous delight to have her in the fold. And of course, for me personally, I can't say enough good things about her poetry, so I'm giddy, as you can tell. Holly is the poet laureate of Arlington County in Virginia. She is the author of 2 books of poetry: Words We Might One Day Say, which was winner of the 2010 Washington Writers Publishing House Poetry Award, and Toe Line, winner of the 2016 Vern Rutsala Poetry Contest from Cloud Bank Books. Her current manuscript projects, Still Life with White and Planter's Wife, grapple with the deep wounds left by our history of racism, slavery, and environmental destruction. She's also the author of over 20 books for children. Holly, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this event and to be part of the publication. I'm just going to read the poems that were in Movable Type. There are 2 of them are poems that I wrote specifically in my role as poet laureate, since our event at the storytelling event was about our roles, our public roles as poet laureates. So I've got this first poem is one that I wrote for the COVID Remembrance event here in Arlington County. In the spring of 2021, we sort of gathered to remember our COVID losses and to kind of celebrate also our sort of healing and resilience as a community. And this is a poem that I wrote for that occasion, and it's called Planting. My daughter and I are planting seeds. It's early spring, the long COVID winter behind us, more uncertainty ahead. We've stopped numbering our griefs, started holding tighter to the loved ones still with us. I dig small holes with my fingers and my daughter drops in seeds. Then we both smooth the dirt on top. When she was younger, she worried when the seeds disappeared. She'd try to dig them up again to make sure they were okay. Now she's older, patient, knows to leave them alone, to water them and wait. Every day she goes out with a watering can to check, and one afternoon, about a week later, she's jumping by the window, motioning for me to come outside and see the small green sprouts that will become lettuce or peas. Wow, she whispers. And because her wonder is contagious, I allow myself to be amazed too at how the earth keeps going, putting forth its tiny seeds after every long winter, having faith some of them will dig in roots and grow. And this is a poem I wrote for Earth Day last spring, and it's called In the First Breath of Spring, I Remember. And I wrote it on the occasion of a good friend of mine's passing. In the first breath of spring, I remember how suddenly life returns. The sun shifts from behind a cloud and the sky fills with blue. The earth has not forgotten us. It has not forgotten itself. Ice melts from the branches, buds push their way forth to blossom, bright colors of early spring, red buds and weeping cherries reflecting the afternoon light. In a week, the flowers will be gone, falling from limbs like heavy snow, a reminder of how fragile the balance, our human weight tipping the scales as the clock ticks on Union Square. What is needed of us now to keep the seasons in check, the deep green leaves of summer and gold of autumn, so that life can go on reimagining itself, healing itself after every long winter, healing us. What will we care for if not this? And then this last poem is one that I sent Sean just as kind of a accompaniment to these two. And I spend a lot of time in this trail behind my house in Arlington County, Donaldson Run Trail, and then the Potomac Overlook Park, sort of my walking, thinking place. And so I spend a lot of time in the woods. This is about the forest. The forest sprouts of its own volition. Here are sky, water, roots. Here are worms pushing through dirt, branches moving towards sunlight, bird feet on bark, a torrent of spiders, stammering, rutted, broken blossoming. This is nothing to fear. Fear hands on a paper that says what can be owned, that says a forest is paper, is someone's property, that says you can possess what you don't understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Holly. And if you want to say a quick word about your work, I think it's totally appropriate, just about your role as Poet Laureate and how people can get involved if they want to do so.
Yeah, no, it's been an awesome experience. This is my third year as Poet Laureate. Fortunately, I was only supposed to have 2, but I couldn't really do much the first year because of COVID. It was extremely frustrating. So the county gave me a third year to sort of try to get some things going. And I've finally been able, like last year and this year, I've been able to really step into my role as Poet Laureate. And I think after not being able to do anything for a year because of COVID, being out in the public and being able to bring poetry to the community has felt even more exciting and more needed. I'm currently working on a really exciting project with Arlington Youth Poet Laureates. And we're putting together an anthology of Arlington High School poets in conjunction with Day 8. And that has been amazing work because I get a chance to be around young poets and to see the kind of energy and excitement that young people have for poetry and the ways that they're turning to poetry, and the way that poetry is really alive in schools and in the community. So that's been really exciting. It's also supported by a fantastic grant from the Academy of American Poets. So I have to give a nod to them. They've made this work possible and really made me and the community feel supported. So that's been really awesome.
Yeah, Holly, I mean, you know how I feel about you, but as a teacher and an advocate, in addition to being an incredibly talented writer, like I said, it's always a joy and a blessing. So our paths shall cross again for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean.
You betcha. All right, let's keep the poetry going. I have known our next writer and reader, but I knew of her, speaking of COVID and being in the vicinity of people you'd want to meet, but we weren't able to for a couple of years. So she was kind enough and gracious enough to be part of our October event. And she read a series of haikus. And I think it's fair to say I was not the only one completely blown away, not only by the talent, which I knew from having read her work, but seeing her in action, which you all are about to do. It doesn't quite approximate being in person, but what does? Kim B. Miller is a force of nature, and I'm really glad that she's able to be here tonight. And it was an absolute thrill to include her work in the last issue of Movable Type. Let me tell you about Kim. She was crowned the first African-American Prince William County Poet Laureate, that's in Virginia, in 2020. She serves as a motivational speaker for Bard High School and Early College, DC, a teaching artist at DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and a workshop facilitator for the University of California, Berkeley. She's the 2021 DMV Renaissance Award winner, Haikuist of the Year, Haikuist of the Decade, as far as I'm concerned. She also won 4th place in the annual Writer's Digest contest for non-rhyming poetry in 2021, and the 2019 Southern Fried Haiku Champion. I want a t-shirt that says Southern Fried Haiku Champion. Kim B. Miller, thank you for being here. And the mic is yours, my friend.
Thank you all so much. It is my honor and pleasure to be here. Where there's poetry, you'll probably find Holly or me or both. And definitely something that's no doubt that Mr. Murphy put together. We are all lovers of poetry, as is everybody in the room. So, okay, I always, as poets and artists, we always argue with ourselves what we're going to say. And it's not that we don't prepare ahead of time, because I know a lot of you are like, don't you know what you got? Of course we do. But then we get on, we argue with ourselves, and then we change up exactly everything we had planned. And then we switch up and go, oh, Holly gave me an idea. So actually, Holly and I are on the same page on a couple of these. So, I'll get into my first poem, and of course I'll be doing haiku, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. Okay, this one is a short poem called Earth. Flowers sway as sweet freedom carries a cool, fragrant breeze. The wind sings lead vocals while an orchestra of raindrops smooths in rhythm. Rain greets soil. The melody produced makes drums jealous. How many times have we overlooked this interaction of simplicity? This symphony of nourishment, except this musical is lacking depth. Buried excuses produce accelerated depletion, rich dirt made poor by our negligence. Nature is tainted. Rays of light surrender to smoke. Let no more fire start with our discarded truth. We are burning time like it's endless. Invisible ashes drift unnoticed. Let truth outshine the intricate shadow of lies we bathe in. Green is not just the pigmentation of money. It's breathing scenery, the landscape of hope. We can't keep pretending that we are not killing our home. Earth has shown us that we are all murderers, organically homegrown killers. Earth's over-fertilized blood is on our hands. We can't keep nourishing our excuses while our planet dies. All right, I know that one was a bit heavy, but truth is, as they say. Of course, now I'm arguing with myself on the second one. Okay, I'm gonna keep it what I originally said I was gonna do. Okay, bear with me. Computer wants to act funky. Okay, of course, it just closed it out. Okay, I'm back. This one is called Fear. And I told you, me, Holly and I are on the same page today. And this one is an odd kind of poem, but I like, as you can tell, I kind of like odd sort of things. So here we go. Fear. I slipped away. I dropped fear off. I don't think it needs me. I was always polite. I made it feel comfortable, but I'm sick of the sofa bed. It's not comfortable. I don't know how I was so unbothered. No pre-existing excuses were planted in my indecisiveness. This is my garden. I only planted non-confrontational seeds. I just feel like using genetically modified reasons. I know I escaped though. I'm good now. Scratch, I meant definitely. I said when, but I slipped away. I'm just gonna drop fear off. Can you just drop fear off though? Can you? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm good. I really just need a plan for my plan to follow so I can stay focused while looking away. You know how hard it is to say goodbye. Goodbyes are not my problem, though. It's a loss of a flavor that used to dominate every meal. That's what I miss. It's like pre-season defeat. But that doesn't matter now. I'm not going back. Do you think I should go back? I'm just kidding. I don't need fear. I can get so much done now. I've eradicated my restrictions. No more fear. I wonder what fear is doing. Maybe I should. No, I'm not going back. Not this time. I have a right to a life. Fear looks at me and says, are you done rehearsing? I say yes. It must be time to eat. What's on the menu? Defeat with roasted promises on a bed of lies, served with an empty glass of opportunities. And I have to do haiku because I love haiku. So what are haiku? I get that question often. And stop tagging me if you don't know. So haiku are, as I said, haiku is both singular and plural. Haiku are traditional, non-traditional. There's more than one type, but the most common type is the 5-7-5. 17 syllables. Syllables! Stop tagging me. Syllables, not words, to make your point. Traditional ones are only on nature, will never change the traditional one of just beautiful Japanese poetry. It is what it is. Non-traditional, sometimes called senryu. Still 17 syllables. They're not supposed to rhyme. That was the original form. In performance poetry, we don't go senryu or haiku. We know if you hear it, it's only on nature, it's a haiku. And if it's not, it's a senryu. So here we go, haiku. And I say haiku because I like to. Look, your mirror is not broken. You are. Pieces of truth can't fix lies. Haiku. Why don't you sit with your victories like you sit with your failures? Well, haiku. Your joy isn't their job. Your crutch won't fit under their arm. Joy ain't plural. Haiku. Companionship is not a solution to pain. Don't give love a job. Haiku. Love or lust? Lust is rent with an option to buy. Are you a renter? Haiku. It's okay to be scared. Do it anyway. Scared people succeed too. And haiku. Each tear holds whispered pain. When a tear falls in the woods, no one hears it. And what do I have going on? I'm trying to narrow it down. Okay, so I am facilitating some classes for some high school students, teaching artist stuff. I am starting a podcast because I've been told I should have had one, and I was, so starting one in January, and all between that, I got a lot of other stuff going on, but you can find all my information at kimbmiller.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. And as I've told you, and likely will tell you repeatedly, the door will always swing wide anytime you want to read at any 1455 event. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, this next gentleman I have introduced before with great pleasure. And if I have anything to say about it, I will continue to introduce him at many more events. David and I met in Winchester several years ago, and I've had the opportunity to hear him read his poetry. He's shared poetry with me and vice versa. He's been involved in a few readings with us, and he just continues to produce and do his thing. When I read his bio, you'll understand the reasons why I admire and I'm inspired by this gentleman. So, David Hubbard is the author of Mobius, Meditations on Home, and his poems and essays have appeared in Button Poetry, The Good Men Project, and various literary journals. His latest collection, Death Throes, I just lost my place. His latest collection, Death Throes of the Broken Clockwork Universe, is now available. Born and raised in New Jersey, he now lives in Virginia and works in aviation. David, thank you for being here, my friend. It's never not great to see you.
Hey, good evening, Sean. Likewise, and good evening, everyone else as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be a part of the latest edition of Movable Type, and also to share with everyone tonight. The book, Death Throes of the Broken Clockwork Universe, is officially 2 months old. It came out 2 months ago, and been very grateful for the reception. But also I do want to say thank you and congratulations to you, Sean, on the October Fall Fest. It was a very special evening, and I look forward to doing that type of engagement and learning and listening again. The poems that I will read tonight are the ones that were featured in the latest edition, and I'll give some very brief backstory because my poems are short, so it might help to get some context as to how they came about. But 3 were published in the collection, and the first one is called World Without Gymnopedes. This is the famous piano minimalist song composed by Eric Satie, a French musician back in the late 1900s. And I composed it, or composed the poem, that is, after listening to a story that a friend told to me about this song. And the story briefly was that she heard the song when she was a little girl, and she used to fall asleep to it every single night. And she never learned the name of it. And about a year ago, over the pandemic, she reunited with the song. She heard it, she recognized it immediately, and burst into tears because it brought back such beautiful memories for her. And then she took it a step further and learned the piano just to play this song so that she could get closer to the music. And I was stunned by this story, and I thought about it for a while, and I composed this poem. And in it, the thoughts were those things in life that we take for granted, like the famous music by Eric Satie is something that one can't really imagine music history without today. But what would it be like if we didn't have that? And I'm sure there are other works of arts and things like that that we take for granted around us every day. So World Without Genopedes. Her ache, a run-on sentence, beginning like, forgive me, God, for ever taking Sati for granted. His question, a song circling like, what if language cannot teach us anything? Play again her childhood song, coming home like, memories, buoyed from sleep's pitched ink, or joyful tears blurring the notes of sheet music. The next poem that I will read is entitled Aria Number 4, and in the collection of poems, there are two parts. The first part are poems around the subject of place and time, and the second are love poems. And in that, there's a series I call the arias, like the opera solos, and they're very short, and I always imagine they could be either sung, recited, or spoken silently. This poem particularly has images from astronomy, and there's a little nod to Walt Whitman in there too. Aria number 4. You dream life into truth. Imagine me, electric, in universe parallel. For you, my equal, appearing anew. I hold in my attitude the favor of nations. I consume dark matter and roar stars. And the last poem that I'll read is a favorite of mine, and got some interesting responses from a lot of people around this one. This is entitled The Rebellion of Sisyphus. Sisyphus being the Greek hero who was condemned to push a rock uphill for eternity. And I confess that this story has always given me a lot of angst and trouble ever since I was a kid. When I first heard this story, I thought it was vastly unfair that Sisyphus would be punished in such a manner, given that all he wanted to do was be immortal, which I didn't find unreasonable. And I still don't. But there's also very deep philosophy in there too, and a meditation on what it means to be human and struggle and keep persisting. One of the ways out of the quandary of the myth I found was through the essays of the philosopher Albert Camus, who talked about this in detail, and in the end, he imagined Sisyphus being happy in the course of his travails. And I always wanted to imagine Sisyphus free. So I think I tried to go for it in this poem. The Rebellion of Sisyphus. At first, the stones would not speak to me. On my last push, they wept that I would stay. Only those who chain death can guess how I reached the other side. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Folks, and those of you watching and tuning in, hopefully at some point you'll have the pleasure of engaging David in conversation, because as you can tell, a very deep, intelligent, fascinating person. But if you can't meet him in person soon, check out his work. And I think you'll be very rewarded. David, once again, such a joy to always have you, in the mix. Let's keep the party going with David's. And the next David, I want to start by saying another person that I haven't yet met in person, We will rectify that now that the world's opening up. But I will say with great appreciation that I got to know David Ebenbach through his literary citizenship. We know each other on social media, and I've been a big fan before I read his work. I was a big fan of the person. I know he's a teacher, and he's ceaselessly making space for other writers and celebrating their achievements. I think we all need to do that more. We all need to do that better. But whenever I need to be reminded of what literary citizenship means, I can always think about David and feel inspired and relieved that, our literary world, which can be very insular, and is, again, coming out of a pandemic, was very claustrophobic at times. David is constantly expanding that vista. So I'm deeply grateful. And it's just an absolute joy to celebrate his new book and have some of those poems appear. So David Ebenbach is the author of 9 books of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, including his new poetry collection, What's Left to Us by Evening, which was blurbed and raved about by Ron Charles, the Washington Post critic, who was our Storyteller of the Year. So lots of wonderful worlds coming together in that moment. His books have won such awards as the Juniper Prize and the Drew Hines Literature Prize, among others. He lives with his family in Washington, D.C., where he teaches and supports graduate student and faculty teaching at Georgetown University. David, absolute pleasure to break the ice with your first, but hopefully not last, 1455 reading. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. I certainly hope it's not the last. That was a befuddlingly kind introduction. Thank you. That was beautiful. And it's so beautiful also to be in a space with such incredible poets and poetry. And I'm grateful to just everybody for sharing themselves and their work. And I'm very honored to be among you. I'm going to share the poems from this issue, which also come from, that new book of mine, What's Left to Us by Evening, which is here, but also like here kind of behind me. And it's a book really about trying to hold simultaneously the brokenness of this universe and the astonishing beauty of this universe, both of which are really true things. And I feel like I want to pay attention to both of them. So I'll start with this poem, Plague City. I live, as you mentioned, I live in DC, and not long after the pandemic started, it was cherry blossom season here in DC, which is an astoundingly beautiful time to be here. And here we were sort of trapped in our homes. Plague City. From the window, sometimes I see a person walking a dog. The dogs have to walk no matter who's sick. They are energy compressed. Sunlight leans on them and their nervous owners. After 2 long weeks, I go out because I need to go out to the cherry trees. There are a few people and dogs out here, and I duck them all around cars and signposts winding up the hill. 2 blocks of sunlight. Then the cherries. Clouds, fields of cotton, a reversal of something, a surrounding, which is to say that they have bloomed heedlessly, wantonly, with determination. They spray the air white, pink. It's almost like they don't need us. And then this one is called Picking. I'll just read it, Picking. We pay to pick apples and raspberries. We ask the tour guides at Alcatraz to lock us in. Put our heads and hands in the stocks. Walk through slave quarters with heads ducked, cross the hushing sand of the old island synagogue. We raise our kids in a wax museum of tragedy, where they fake their deaths 1,000 times. Schindler's List is on, but it'll push dinner back. We watch it in pieces. In the sun, we stand up and rest a few minutes. Who chose this outing? Tomorrow is the reenactment of Manassas. All I have is this blue coat, my grandfather's, Coast Guard, because he stayed home with bad eyes. It still has some of the original buttons. In this museum, I carry the passport of someone who died. Our children ask for pie. The reference to the sand on the floor of the synagogue is just the legacy of anti-Semitism, of needing to not have your footsteps be audible so people don't know that you're in there and can't come get you. So that was a tradition in many synagogues. I'm Jewish, and I've been thinking a lot about a lot of things lately, including anti-Semitism. But as I say, this poem is also about the beauty of the universe. And so this speaks to that side of this moment that we're in, that we're always in, God damn it, apparently. Saturday morning. Despite everything, sun finds the synagogue window. Despite everything, stretches into the sanctuary, whitening the white walls, polishing the wood floors, touching shoulders and hair with warm hands, finds us gathered from our many daily exiles, already singing. And then I'll end with this poem called Falling. I write these poems where if I don't know how to write the poem, I just write a poem about how I'm going to write a poem. And somehow that makes it easier. So I have a lot of I'm going to write a poem about poems. And this is one of them, Falling. I'm going to write a poem about joy, that thing some poets know about. And the poem will come out in long lines, maybe even a single sentence, so that everyone, the poet and the reader, will be rushing, tumbling almost toward the finish, breath drawing down the throat, and the lines will break into lists of the things that bring pleasure. The scent of leaves at the window, kind of blue, the perfect smoothness of peanut butter in a new jar, a rectangle of light on the bed, the car starting midwinter, untangled fur to the touch. And the reader will collect these things like marbles, like hundreds of marbles in their arms. And partly the joy will come from losing these joys, from being unable to hold them. Picture marbles overflowing from your arms, falling to the floor, which is now carpeted, so that their landing is more like the oomph of sudden pleasure deep in the chest. And all around your feet is color, round and bright, and you hesitate to take a single step lest you slip on some of this happiness, fall too heavily among the things you always wanted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. And please hold up your book one more time so everyone can see it. What's Left to Us by Evening. Hot off the presses. Check it out. Spread the word. Support our great poets. Like I said, David, first and not last, so to be continued. Thank you. Okay, our next, speaking of literary advocacy, I have a special place in my heart for Vicki Wicker, because in addition to always being game, being willing and quite capable of contributing to Movable Type in previous and hopefully future issues, she goes out of her way to help raise awareness for what we're doing, and her enthusiasm, I think, is contagious. And you know, when you run an arts nonprofit, you hope for the best and keep your expectations low, I think, to remain sane. But when you have foot soldiers that are willing to help spread the word, it's invaluable. It's gold. So when you meet someone like that, that's also a good person and a great artist, it's the complete package. So let me tell you a little bit about Vicki. She's a poet and art photographer. And I should point out, in this issue of Movable Type, we featured words and images, so it was the complete package of that. She is a member of the Los Angeles Poets and Writers Collective and Bright Hill Press Poets. Her poetry has been published by Moth, 12 Los Angeles Poets, Literary Mama, and many others. Her poetry and art photography are featured in the anthology Seeing Things, and her debut collection of poems, Caught Before Flight, was published by Woodland Arts Editions, all in 2020. Vicki, thank you for all that you do, and thanks mostly for being here tonight.
You're so sweet. I tell everyone, you know, you got to watch these readings just to see Sean, to know how to run a reading and how to be a good literary human. You're so great. Thank you so much. I'm always shocked who you're talking about when you start reading mine. I'm like, who's he like talking about? That can't be me. Thank you, Sean. I'm going to just read two poems, the poems that are in the 1455 movable type. And here I go. Well, I'll say a little bit. Okay, so I live in upstate New York, and I've been here for 10 years. I moved here from LA. And I am always completely surprised by fall. Fall in the Northeast is unbelievable. So these are fall centric, and with fall comes winter. So they're a little bit of both. Winter's coming. This is my dog is now rolling and going insane. Okay, sorry. Winter's coming. Autumn's leafing. Summer's seeded stalks, bleeding colors, leaving grasses all aflame. Tawny thatchings, grieving things, gathering survivals. Gardens, golden folds holding spiders, patient, noiseless, till they drop silver threads, hub, frame, anchor. Autumn's leaving, winter's coiling, night's cold fists, bruising velvets, bird by stars. And thank you. The next one is frost. Frost, summer's goodbye. Fields rhymed with ice, this way coming. But first be dog, be joy, everything is to the dogged heart. Dear pellets are chocolates, gardens dead, a playground, zucchini, eggplant, broccoli, launch them at those great bodied birds, filling our skies with their honking sorrows. We need these frosts because by them our world becomes crimsons, golds, oranges. You're not complaining, are you? Stalk my sunflowers, brown petals, bent necks, pie pan faces, how they Fibonacci, their spiraled eyes robbed blind by jays of a certain calling, tongues echoing a warning sharp as blackened ice, this way coming. And that's it. And, Sean, thank you. I was going to ask, I was like, talk about anything you want. I want to talk about that Mexican retreat that you're going to be at.
Todos Santos.
That I want to be at so badly.
Well, there's so thank you for that segue, because in this issue of Movable Type, I talk about Movable Feast, which is an initiative that 1455 is in the early stages of. Simply put, what we're trying to do is collaborate with existing retreat spaces and venues and hopefully exotic locales where writers are able to gather in person. And we're in the position of trying to help connect potential visitors with some of these places. And the good folks who run the Todos Santos Writers Retreat and Workshop are one of our early partners. And as is Prospect Street in Bennington, Vermont, where I had the great pleasure of being in September. And V. Hansman, who is the mastermind behind that venture, is also included with an interview and an essay in this recent issue. So if you want to find out more about Movable Feast, or of opportunities where 1455 can help connect and engage with writers and retreats, that would be awesome. So, and speaking of, Vicki, it's even more appropriate as I've got family and have spent a lot of time driving to and from Boston on the East Coast, never had been in upstate New York. So when I drove back from Bennington, it was the first time I'd ever driven through upstate and the whole northern part of New York. And it was a little bit before the full foliage, but it was astonishingly beautiful. And about 1,000,000 times prettier than the New Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah, yeah. So I moved here from LA and I'm just it's all new to me every year. Every season is all new. And Bennington is so close to me. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you and I should talk offline, but Prospect Street, I can vouch for it having been there, but I know V, and you can read more about it in the Movable Type issue, and then that links to the Prospect Street site. Amazing venue, and full credit and props to V Hansman for putting in the time and money to make that dream a reality.
awesome. Great.
So thank you. Thank you for that. You just teed that up for me. But I also have a request. I mean, if you're going to be our season poet, maybe for spring, some more photos and words might be in order. So
Thank you.
consider that a humble commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for this evening, like I said, we have a few folks that couldn't join us tonight, and I'll mention them at the end. But our last reader of the night, I kind of intentionally say for last because he is our story guy. I've met very few people who not only love the concept of story and what it does, what it means, but he's able to write about it and articulate it with insight and unbelievable passion. Like some of our other folks tonight, this is not Kurt's first entry into the 1455 world, but as I say, with complete sincerity to all of you, hopefully not your last, and won't be if I have anything to say about it. But Kurt is just super inspiring. And look, for a nonprofit that talks about celebrating storytelling, when you have an ambassador for the form, you seize them and hold them tightly. So let me tell you about Kurt. He loves to help people speak better, sound better, and be more persuasive and more clear as entrepreneurs and artists. He helps with video presentations, book proposals, keynote speeches, investor pitches, toasts, and even eulogies, which are so often the most beautiful pieces of writing. Kurt's an award-winning storyteller, writer, teacher, and speech trainer who tells stories at events in and around Boston wherever he can, whenever he can. He lives in Newburyport, Massachusetts with his wife, Amy, and their dog, Daphne. Kurt, thank you for being here. And also, I have to say, thank you for being an enthusiastic partner. It's just been a joy to get to know you. And, this is just the beginning.
Just the beginning. And thanks for having me. And thanks for the claps. And poets, I love you. And thank you for letting me keep company with you on the screen tonight. And it kind of bowls me over that I'm actually trying to follow people who are so sensitive to the language. I love you. I've tried what you do. Wasn't a poet. I'm not a poet, but my journey in writing and story and what have you has been a long one. I think when I was younger, I thought I would write books, like, I'd write long. It turns out that what I really like to do is, well, much like yourselves, I think, I like to write short things. And I also imagine that I'd be able to turn this stuff around. Maybe if we were living 100 years ago, I'd be able to turn things around really quickly in print. I love writing. I am a writer. 3.5 years ago, an English teacher friend called me and said, hey, I went to this story thing last night, and Smitty, her husband, my buddy, Smitty and I think you'd be pretty good at it, or maybe you'd be okay. I forget what she said, but I was like, I don't do that. I stay at my desk and I don't do that story thing. It seems a little fraudulent, to tell you the truth. And then like 3 days later, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to give it a whirl. And what happened was I went into Boston to some comedy club, and I told the story about my mom, which I won't get to tell tonight, but another time. Like a robot, I was so in love with all my sweet little transitional phrases. It just broke my heart to think I could forget any of them, that I was completely robotic on stage. It would be a little while before I'd realize, like, yeah, actually, don't worry. The stories are never the same. Don't worry. It's not like writing in that way. Actually, there are tons of differences. So that's how I got into this. And somebody came up to me at like halftime and said, now that you've told that story about your mother, I'm going to tell that story, my mother's story. And I was like, oh, wow, I love this connected tissue, or this connectedness. And then I was thinking, oh, next time I'll do this differently. And that's when you know you're hooked on anything, right? So I wrote for Sean, thank you, for 1455, Why I Tell Stories. And I'm just going to read the first little bit of it. It takes a little under 2 minutes. And then poof, we get to, do whatever we do after such readings. But again, thank you, Sean, and thank you all for listening. I have a memory of an old tennis coach who drove a rusty Camaro in the 1970s and who had a toy poodle called Coco. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, this memory, this man. His name was Mike. What's great about remembering him all these years later is that Mike memories are magnets for other kinds of memories. The more I think about him, the more details of the old days I can see. This Mike, he must be important. Why else would his memories be hanging around after all this time? What if I look more closely? What if I find something? What if I spend some time really thinking about this guy? What if there's a story? I tell stories because these memories have meanings, usually, but I'm only going to find out the meanings if I try. And this is me telling stories. This is me, age 50. I'm trying. There are all kinds of people out there trying like this. There are all kinds of people out there telling stories all the time, telling stories right now. And I'm one of them. And though the memory is of Mike, the way he used to bounce out of his Camaro, racket under one arm and Coco under the other, I know the resultant story will be about me. I am the protagonist of all my stories. I'm that kind of storyteller. I don't invent so much as I try to understand. What did I just do with my life? That's it.
To read the rest in this issue of Movable Type, and I'll always indelibly have Coco and Camaro associated now, which I think is the first time that sentence has ever been uttered in the history of ever. So you've left your mark. Thank you, Kurt.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, David and David. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Holly. I do want to give a shout out to a handful of folks that couldn't be here tonight, but who are in this issue 13 of Movable Type, which you can see by going to 1455litarts.org and downloading it for free and sharing it widely. Those include the aforementioned V. Hansman, as well as our keynote speaker from the Summer Festival, Jenna Bloom, amazing author, and she's all over the place. So Jenna, B-L-U-M, check her out. Ron Charles, also mentioned earlier, the amazing critic. And speaking of ambassadors for storytelling, Ron Charles is a national hero, and it's our tremendous honor and pleasure to have named him Storyteller of the Year. Kim Treidman, whose art is featured on the cover. Her art is featured in the issue, and we featured her work at our festivals. Zaina Azam is our other poet laureate who couldn't be here tonight. She's the poet laureate of Alexandria, Virginia. Check her work out in the issue. And then the artwork of Chad Lewis and the unbelievably awesome photography of Matt Mendelson. All this stuff is in the issue. Once again, 1455litarts.org. This is our last official event of the year. So extra thanks to all of you for being here. To everyone checking us out, please be safe. Have a great holiday season. Spread the love of story, and we will definitely see you soon. Take care, everybody.